First up, we've got the stats talking about Rodrigo Bentancur, and he says, I'm a big fan of this man, probably my second favourite player in this squad, but yesterday his lack of fitness really showed and were non-existent at times. I know fans think he can play the number 8, but I'm sure in time he can, but at the moment he needs to play the number 6 role. He does not have the legs currently to do all the running of an 8. And I think that kind of was shown yesterday, to be honest. Maybe the 6 role might have been more kind of suited to him and him coming back to full fitness. I just don't. I think he just put in a fairly poor display yesterday.
Yeah, I think maybe he makes a good point. Because obviously he has played in this. He played in the 6 against, I think, Burnley, was pretty good. Played in the 8 against United though, and he was decent in that game. So it's hard to say if it was the position that was the problem.
But he came up just against a much better midfield yesterday than he did against United.
And Eriksen, where he would have the legs on them, but Kovacic and a Rodri, not necessarily.
You're coming up against the best midfielder in Europe in Rodri.
Yeah, and these guys just can run all day and they've got all the qualities. So, but you know, Bentancur, I've seen him play against Rodri and have a great game against him. So maybe I don't know if his position. Maybe it's just a case of he's still come back from injury and he needs to get back to his best. Not every game is going to be top notch just because he had a few good games. I
think so. And also, like, since he's come back from injury, as much as he has had good games, it's still not to the level as what we know that Rodrigo Bentancur can produce. So having said that is saying he's coming back from injury, right? Yeah. Because we haven't seen him at his best yet since post-injury.
Definitely.
Yeah. Albeit though, in that Aston Villa game, it's probably in that first 20 minutes before he got that second injury was probably the best we've ever seen him.
Yeah, that's also true. It's just a shame that during that period he got injured again, and since then it hasn't quite been there just yet.
Hotspur Central says that people saying we've used the rebuild excuse for years. This is the first year the rebuild has actually properly begun. Conte and Mourinho eras needed immediate success as they weren't interested in sticking out a rebuild. For me, this year was a clean slate. And I actually completely agree with that, you know. Sometimes I say, yeah, Spurs are in a rebuild, but then people say to me, yeah, we've been in a rebuild for 5 years, but this is a real rebuild. This is actually a real one, you know. We've got the manager, which is here for the rebuild, like he says, instead of here just for success immediately. You can see that the progress of the team is getting better and better and better. You can see that we've got a good starting 11. We just need options off the bench, which we haven't had all season. So I think people just need to calm down a little bit and see where we're at as a football club.
Yeah, 100%. And if you can't see the football we've been playing for a lot of the season, yes, there's going to be games where we don't play well and it doesn't go quite right because we're still at the infancy of the project. We're 7 months into it, so you can't expect everything to be perfect straight away. But the fact that we're still at such a good level, it's a weird one. It feels like that first 10 games has given everyone like false expectations as to how hard it is to actually rebuild a project. Everyone thinks everything's going to be going smoothly because after 10 games, 8 wins, 2 draws, playing great football, everyone thinks, oh, this is going to be great from here on in. But there's always going to be difficulties, and that's what we have to go through. Yeah,
we're not going to turn into like this title-winning, title-challenging side just because we've appointed Ange Postecoglou. We need time.
It took 18 months for Klopp to get to the level we're at now. It took 18 months.
Guardiola as well, it took him time.
Guardiola, he got top 4 in his first year. I'm saying Klopp finished 8th in his first season, and then in the second season, he just about made top 4. Right now, we could finish top 4, and that would be ahead of where Klopp was when he first joined Liverpool.
And when you're talking about like expectations as well, I do feel like some Spurs fans' expectations for this season are a bit too high. Like people just expect us to romp every game and win every game, like we're champions or something. Like you got to realize where we're at as a football club, and we're at the infancy of an Ange project. We're in the first 6 months, for God's sake. Like give the guy a bit of a break.
Yeah, 100%.
SofaScore saying a quick stat: Tottenham have attempted only 1 shot against Man City tonight, which is the lowest number of shots they've taken in a single match in our database. 455 matches in all competitions since the start of the 15-16 season. A humbling at home.
Yeah, that was the most disappointing thing, I think, when it comes out yesterday. I think people do go overboard with the criticism, but I think looking at that stat, that I think it's hard to disagree that however poor we were, it's just hard to believe we were as so poor that we only had 1 shot. And that is something where you look at and you think, that should never be the case at home. Even against Man City, you should never be having only 1 shot. And that was disappointing. But Is what
Agreed.
it is. What you have to just take on the chin.
I completely agree. Jacko says that surely a huge positive of yesterday is Van de Ven. He stepped up even in the toughest situation when we were struggling, saving ourselves numerous amount of times on the ball. He was also very good, composed and precise in his passing. Mature performance from an incredible young player, and I completely agree with that. I said that countless amount of times during the stream. I thought he was the best player on the park yesterday, and it's just so good to have him back, isn't it? I mean, you look at it now, going into the season, you're confident about going into the games in terms of our defensive display. We're not looking at Emerson and Ben Davis in our centre-back position. We've got Mickey Van de Ven and Coutinho Romero, who are absolutely perfect for each other. And I thought Mickey just put in an unbelievable display yesterday.
Yeah, it's played like he's never been away as well. So great. Really, really good to have him back on the pitch. So can't wait to hopefully he plays from now to the end of the season. Let's hope he has a long stretch of games now.
Yep. Kev says, Tottenham Twitter, we got narrowly beat by last season's treble winners. We didn't create anything of note, but we held them for 87 minutes despite Højbjerg. It's not the end of the fucking world like some on here are acting like. The foundations are there. Cheer up. And that's kind of how I'm feeling as well after the game yesterday. All the negativity coming around after the game yesterday. Yeah, it wasn't a great performance in terms of going forward. We didn't create chances. Absolutely spot on, and we should have done. I completely agree with that. But in terms of where we're at, in terms of who we lost to yesterday, people just need to calm down a little bit.
I think Kev hit the nail on the head, to be honest. I think no one should be going overboard about this defeat. It's a tough one to take just because of how dominant City were, but it can happen, especially against a team who've been together for 9 years. You know what I mean? Against one who's been together for 7 months.
Yeah. This one from Samit saying, exhibit. I'm not even going to pretend to know what number that is, but a very high number. It's like the referees have never played football before.
It's in response to, it says, if you're a defender and you're running towards your own goal, you just fall down and the decision goes your way 99% of the time. It's absolutely right. It's a bit of a pet peeve of mine. I agree with them. Like, if you're a defender and you're being chased around attacker, you don't even have to be fouled. Just fall over. And every time they give the free kick, it's so annoying. Yeah. And that happened yesterday with Werner and Walker, but it's just very annoying. Well,
was that the same case then for the goal with Vicario? Because usually when anyone just challenges the keeper or makes a touch on the keeper, it gets given the keeper's way as well.
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
But not yesterday.
Nope. Yeah.
The extra inch say, I thought Werner's movement was brilliant, was absolutely brilliant, and he should have been played through multiple times by Udogie, Kulusevski, Bentancur. Frustrating as we beat their press incredibly well and bravely and then failed to make the next pass. And yeah, that's kind of something that we've been alluding to in terms of the way Werner was making those runs and just consistently just wasn't found, particularly in that first half.
Yeah, and against a team like Man City, when you're up, their pressing is so good, when you are able to get through it, you have to make that count, and I feel like we just didn't. We were frustrating in that final pass. We dawdled. We didn't make decisive decisions, and maybe we're just learning how Werner likes to play. We're still, it's only a second game, remember, in a Tottenham shirt, so give it a bit of time. Maybe it'll start to click soon. But yesterday was very frustrating.
I don't even think it's a case of learning how Werner likes to play. There were clear opportunities there where he had space and he was making really good runs, and particularly Destiny Udogie, like we mentioned earlier on in the stream, just holding onto the ball for too long or making a terrible pass. I mean, I don't think that's learning how Werner likes to play. I just think that's poor application.
Yeah. It's also, I think there was definitely poor application, but sometimes once you get used to a player, it just becomes second nature. You know what exactly he's going to do. And so maybe there's just a case of maybe it needs a bit of time to build that relationship.
Jay says, this is funny, Jeremy Doku, when his fullback is under the age of 30 and has pace.
I don't know who that is,
that's one of the guys. There's a big meme about this guy. I can't remember the meme, but it's a very funny one, that's for sure. But Doku, I thought, was fairly poor when he came on yesterday.
I thought Porro dealt with him really well. And there was a couple of occasions he had to run at him, but Porro actually dealt with him pretty effectively, which was surprising. But yeah, it's very funny.
Vicario on Instagram yesterday says, gutted to be out the FA Cup, proud of this group. We keep fighting till the end, and a massive thanks to the fans. And it was such a big occasion, wasn't it, in the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium? It was buzzing for the first 20 minutes of the game, but Man City completely quieted us down, didn't he?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's the case. I think that's also one of the things they did really well was they quietened the crowd because we were very loud, for the first half or so. But once we just struggled to get any sort of a foothold in the game, it was very difficult to keep that up. And that's what I remember Fergie used to say, when we went to Anfield, the main thing is first 20 minutes you gain control and quieten the crowd, and that makes a big difference. And I think that's what City did yesterday.
Yeah. THFC Report just tweeted this out saying Pedro Porro, one of his blocks yesterday, I thought it was sensational. Look at how he celebrates it. Unbelievable.
Putting his body on the line.
Yeah.
Brilliant block as well.
I love his mentality, Pedro Porro. I just love it. And the way he celebrates his defensive actions like they're goals.
Yeah.
I just love to see that. Apollo says that this is the only man that can hold his head up high today, and that is Mickey van der Ven. I mean, we've waxed lyrical about him today, but I mean, that's just one of the few clips that you can probably highlight of why he was so good yesterday.
And these moments they're just so important in games, especially against Man City, because if there's Davis there or Emerson there, we probably could see the big chance there. And luckily, because of Van der Ven, he has that pace.
Yeah. These are from Apollo, a couple of clips saying this is so poor from Destiny and Kulusevski. Werner must be fuming. And these are just another more examples of the runs that Werner were making, and we just failed to find him.
Yeah, very frustrating. Go check out Apollo's Twitter if you want to see those clips in more detail. But they're just evidence of Werner in really good positions and Spurs just not taking advantage of those. So hopefully, once we develop a bit more with him in the team, we'll start to pick out those ones more often.
Tapin Tobe says pitiful performance yesterday from Kulu, Bentancur and Johnson. Werner also stunk. Don't think I've ever seen a worse display under Ange. Romero, Van der Ven were good. Destiny did well, but his final pass stunk. Vicario should have done better for the goal. But when you've only had one shot in 90 minutes, you won't win games. Weak exit. Bounce back versus Brentford. That bounce back is obviously definitely needed.
Is that a worse display under Ange?
I
would say the Wolves one maybe a bit worse.
Yeah.
Brighton?
I think Brighton, at least in the
Brighton we actually had some fight.
Yeah, at least in the Brighton game, the last 10, 15 minutes, we actually could have got back into that game with the amount of chance that we had. So I think this is probably on par with the Wolves display, even though the Wolves display, we lost in the last few minutes of the game. We were 1-0 up until the 90th minute that game.
Yeah, and obviously we scored.
So I probably would say this is, in terms from an attacking point of view and the number of chances we've created, this is our worst display.
Yeah, I would say, is it our worst display? Yeah, but considering, it was a 1-0 last minute loss against City, that's pretty impressive for that to be your worst display.
Yeah, I'll take it. THFC BD says, my head on Mars, please explain, and that's not a foul.
Yeah, I don't know. I've seen it so many times. He does have his arm there. I'm looking again. He has his arm on Vicario. I just think it's weak. I think he gets two hands on that. He could have punched it. I don't know. I don't see a massive case for a clear foul. I do think it probably is a slight foul. I think if that's given, I don't think anyone complains. But I just think it's not a clear and obvious mistake. I don't think VAR should have got involved.
Yeah. Spurs ITK Hub says, obviously disappointing to be out of the cup, but felt less pressure on us to win cups under Ange compared to Jose and Conte. They were only here short term, and it was make or break for them. Ange, much more than the feeling build something long term. Very unfortunate to play such a hard team in the early rounds of the tournament too. Do you think there's less pressure on Ange to win a trophy as there was on Conte and Mourinho?
This season, for sure. For sure I do. Because he's got the backing of a project, whereas we knew Mourinho and Conte, as much as we wanted to believe it was a project, I don't think anyone really truly believed it was. Everyone really knew that they had to win. It was like every trophy they didn't win, it was like another step towards their exit, whereas I don't think it doesn't feel like that with Ange. You know what I mean?
And like Conte, I mean, he was only on a short-term contract anyway, wasn't he?
So it's kind of now or never for them, but it wasn't the same for Ange.
But Mourinho, I don't know, I felt like Mourinho was supposed to be a bit of a project.
Yeah, we hoped, but it turned out that we hoped that Mourinho had changed, but he just hadn't. That's the reality.
Spurs Express saying, this is Sonny on Instagram yesterday watching the game, and he must have been so frustrated watching that, being like, I just need to be on that pitch.
100%. He must have been absolutely climbing the walls thinking, what I could be doing.
Spurs OTM with another clip of Mickey van der Vel. Is actually the same clip as just absolutely winning the ball off Foden yesterday. And I think that is all we have for the way the internet did react to the game yesterday. Spurs did go out with a whimper from the FA Cup, but we got to dust ourselves off. We've got a game very soon on Wednesday night against Brentford, so we have to get back to winning ways against Brentford and carry on that good form in the league